Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to take a very quick look at the game Carcassonne. Now, I admittedly don't speak French, so I apologize if I butchered that, although that's what the lady said when I googled it, so that's what I'm sticking with. In Carcassonne, basically it's 2 to 5 players, ages 8 and up, and the average play time is about 45 minutes. Players in this game will be placing tiles and followers in such a way that'll try and earn them the most points. Let's just take a quick look at the components and see how it's played. Now, as far as the components are concerned, you have a number of different tiles over here on the left, and they each have the same colored back to them. It's a lightish gray. Although there is one tile that is darker than the other ones, this will serve as the starting tile, and I'll explain that in a minute. As far as what's on the other side of these tiles, there's actually a number of different things. You've got tiles that just have a road on them. This particular one, it looks like a church. This is a cloister. These brownish castle-looking things are called cities. And you'll run into some tiles that have both roads and cities on them. Some city tiles have this little shield in the upper corner here, and this plays a part during scoring whenever that occurs. And finally, you've got roads that lead to like an intersection. Those are called segments. As far as the rest of it's concerned, you have these meeples. Each player will receive a set of their own color. And as you can see, there's 5 different colors here. And again, the game plays up to 5 players. So each player will receive one of these, whatever color they want. And players will be placing these followers throughout the game on the different tiles in an effort to score points. Finally, you have a scoreboard over here. One of these meeples in a set will go ahead and be placed on the 0 at the start of the game and will make its way up the track as they earn points. As you can see, there's not a lot of components, and as such, the game setup is pretty easy. As I was showing you before, there is a tile in the set that is darker than the rest. You just simply pick it out and place it in the middle of the table between all of the players, and each player will receive a set of meeples of one color, and they'll put one of those meeples on the 0 space on the scoreboard. Now, to sum up a player's turn, they're going to go ahead and draw one of these tiles from the face-down stack that was randomized at the beginning of the game and place it adjacent to any tiles that are on the board in a legal fashion. And I'm not going to go over all of the placement rules here, but suffice it to say that it must make sense. Roads must connect to roads, cities must connect to cities, and so on and so forth. And it must look convincing and play out in a logical manner when it's all said and done. Now, after a player places a tile, they have the option of taking one of their meeples and placing it on one of those tiles. Now, it's important to know that the role of the meeple will change depending on where it's placed. If it is placed on the road portion of a tile, it becomes a thief. If it is placed on the city portion of the tile, it becomes a knight. If it is placed on the grassy area of a tile, it becomes a farmer. And if it is placed on a cloister tile, it becomes a monk. And they all score a bit differently, and that's really where the heart and soul of the game really lies. Players will have to figure out how they want to place their meeples so that they can score the most points. Now, before I get into all of the different roles that a follower can be, I just want to briefly point out that once you place a follower onto the board, it'll have to remain there until it scores. This works for thieves, knights, and monks. Again, thieves being the followers that are located on a road segment, knights being the followers located on the cities, and the monks being the followers located on these cloister tiles. But they must remain there until that particular road, city, or cloister is scored or is completed. Farmers, on the other hand, are the exception. When you place them onto a field, they remain there until the end of the game. Farms are only scored at the end of the game, so obviously you wouldn't collect them back until that such time. Now, there's also another important rule worth mentioning. Only one meeple color can be present on any particular stretch of road, city, or cloister, or farm. For example, blue would not be able to place a meeple on the stretch of road because red has already claimed it and is the thief on this particular stretch of road. Blue could, however, become a knight by placing his meeple there, become a monk by placing the meeple there on the cloister, or become a farmer by laying it face down or on its side on this grassy area, because red doesn't have a meeple on either of those locations. Now there is an exception to that rule. Just to sum that up, if two segments that are unrelated happen to join together, which would create one giant segment that has two different colors on it, that would be okay. For example, let's say that blue placed this meeple as a thief somewhere else and was not connected, obviously, to this particular stretch of road. And let's say that further along in the game, a tile was placed that connected the road segment that blue was on and the road segment that red was on, and it formed one giant stretch of road. In that case, that would be okay. And when the road segment is completed, the person with the most meeples on that particular stretch of road or city or whatever the case is will earn the points. If it's a tie, both players earn the same amount of points. In order for players to score points with their thieves must be situated on a road that is completed on both ends. That is, the roads must be connecting to something. In this particular instance, this road up here is connected to this cloister. That ends or finishes this road over here. But down here, this road is still open-ended, meaning that the road as a whole is not done yet. Now let's just say that it is red's turn. He draws a tile from the face-down stack and places this particular tile right here. Now, because the crossings effectively end a road segment, this entire road as a whole will have said to be completed. In this case, red would go ahead and score some points. It's 1 point per road segment. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So red would move his meeple up the score track by 5, and because this road is completed and is now scored, red could take this meeple off of this tile and place it back into his or her pool. Knights act fairly much the same way. In this particular instance, red has a knight located in this city. And whenever a city is completed, let's say it is red's turn, and red places this city tile here. When a city is surrounded by walls on all sides, the city is said to be completed. And the player would then earn 2 points per city segment, plus an extra 2 points for each pennant located on these tiles. In this particular case, you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, and then an extra 2 for this pennant. So the red player would move their meeple on the scoring track up 10 points, and because he or she scored on this particular city, they could take this meeple back and put it into their pool. In order for players to score points as a monk, they'll need to completely surround the cloister with tiles. In this particular instance, there's tiles all around this cloister with the exception of the space up here. And what will happen is, let's say it's red's turn, and red goes ahead and places this tile here. Now, because this cloister is now completely surrounded on all sides, red would score 1 point per tile, including the one in the middle. So in effect, you'll score 9 points with this going on right here. Red would move his red meeple on the score track up by 9, and because this cloister is completed and has been scored on, red would take this meeple back and put it into their pool. Now, I mentioned earlier that players will score their farmers at the end of the game, and the end of the game occurs whenever all of the tiles have been placed onto the table. Obviously, that's not the case here. This is just an example, but it'll suit our purposes. Now, before the scoring for the farmers actually occurs, every player will take a look to see if they have any meeples still on the table that are not farmers. And they'll give themselves 1 point per incomplete tile in that particular area or segment. In this case, red has a meeple on or a knight on this particular city that is not complete. So if it's 1 point per tile, it would be 1 point for this tile, 1 point for this tile, and 1 point for the pennant. So red would move his meeple up the score track by 3 and take this back. The same thing for roads and cloisters. It's 1 point per unfinished tile within that particular segment. Now, as far as the scoring for the farming, each farmer will receive 3 points for every city that they have on their field. Every completed city, that is. That's an important distinction. Roads block off fields. So in this particular instance, red's field consists of this patch of green right here. Red would not own any of this field down here because the road blocks that, nor would red own any of the field up here because the road blocks that. However, red does have 2 cities here and here on this field. Now, 1 is not completed, so red would not score 3 points for this one. However, this one is completed, so red would score 3 points. Red would just simply take this meeple back and move the red meeple on the scoring track up by 3. And blue would basically do the same thing with this completed city over here. Blue would take this back, push their meeple on the score track up by 3, and that would end that. Again, blue's field that was here consists of just this part here and right here. Everything else is pretty much blocked off. And that's pretty much it. The player with the most points after all of the farmers have been scored wins the game. And there you have it. This is just a very brief look at the game Carcassonne. I didn't cover all of the placement rules, and I didn't cover everything that was in the manual, but this should give you a good general idea as far as how the game is played and how the gameplay flows. You can check out my review at www.dadsgamingaddiction.com, or you can simply click on the link in the below description, and that'll take you there as well. This is Vince, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.